Hello, I'm 26 years old. I started making booktube videos in 2012. I started really reading, in 2011. So you can imagine that booktube heavily influenced what I was reading at the time, and really how I started my reading journey. Okay, I'm done with that bit. I thought it would be fun to reread some popular booktube books, specifically of the YA genre from 2012, 2013, 2011, 2014. You get the range. When I started on my booktube journey and when I started on my reading journey. So I'm going to give myself 48 hours. By 48 hours, I mean 8 p.m. today, Friday, to 8 p.m. Sunday. What can I say? I love a time crunch. I've compiled a list, really taken from a couple places, specifically a Goodreads shelf called My Faves. That hasn't been updated since 2014. Also from the cockles of my memory, also from my old booktube channel. One parameter I had was I didn't want to reread books that I have reread recently. Alright, enough hobnobbing. It's the weekend. I'm ready to reread some nightmares. The first book on this list is Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. I first read this book in 2013 on a road trip with my mom before I started college. This isn't really YA, it's more adult, but I'm going to include it because it is seminal in my reading life, and that's The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I met Lev Grossman in 2012. He was really, really nice. I was a senior in high school. He talked to me for like 20 minutes, and he signed my book. Now, I think this man is lovely. This book is very, very important to me. This whole series is. A lot of haters. There are a lot of haters for these books. I have not reread this book since 2015. So, Name of the Star by Maureen Johnson. I had to include a Maureen Johnson. This one is spooky because it technically, very much happily, is Halloween season. So I wanted to include this Maureen Johnson. I read this one in like 2014. Next we have The Vampire Academy. I never read Twilight. I never will read Twilight. The Vampire Academy was my poison. Vampire poison. Picking it. Poison. Another vampire book that came out in 2000, randomly, is Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side. I don't know if this book is popular. I mean, it came out in 2000 before YA was like YA, but I thought it was modern when I read it in like 2012, 2013, and I really enjoyed it. Next, Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I mean, I had to. Daughter of Smoke and Bone, read this book in 2012, loved it. Never finished this series, but, you know, maybe this is my time to start that journey. Shatter Me. I had to. I had to choose a dystopian book that meant a lot to me as a teenager, and Shatter Me was it. An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. Had to include a John Green. This was my first John Green. I read this book in 2011-ish, 2012, and I loved it. This one I fear will be terrible. Nick and Norah's Infinite Playlist. I love this movie, I love this book. And then finally, a book that meant the world to me. Lola and the Boy Next Door by Miss Stephanie Perkins. This is an old cover, obviously. I read this book in 2011, 2012. I loved it so much. I reread Anne the French Kiss a couple years ago. I did not enjoy it. I think I will like this one better, but also I think I will like this one less than I did as a high school student. Okay, that is my little list. I'm ready. I wanted an audiobook. I wanted to read Vampire Academy. So I went to my library because I thought that surely they had all the other books. They're probably going to have Vampire Academy. They didn't. So then I said, Audible. Sometimes if you're like me and for some reason still have an Audible subscription, they will give you old YA titles for free if you're an Audible member. Really sometimes makes it worth it. Guess what? Doesn't exist. Audible says, this book is probably out of print. Not only is it probably out of print, they probably never made an audiobook. Alright, Audible. Mr. Jeff Bezos owns the world and you don't have Vampire Academy on Audible? So I say fine. I'll go to Libro FM. Maybe they'll have it for cheap. Libro FM, great alternative to Audible. Love it. Do I want to use one of my credits for Vampire Academy? Not really. Maybe I'll buy it for like $10. It is $24.99 to buy Vampire Academy. So I said, I'm going to try Daughter of Smoke and Bone. Guess what? My library says, we have it. We have it on audio, but guess what? Can't get it right now. Someone else is reading this book that came out in 2009. I am really spitballing dates here. I have no idea when these books came out. I feel like I might be right. But it says it'll be coming up soon. So I put it on hold. Anyway, we're here now. I've decided to switch themes from YA fantasy. I'm going to listen to Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, a fantasy for indie kids all over America in the early 2010s. I realized that I don't remember anything from this book. I remember the movie really well, obviously. Kat Dennings, Michael Cera, iconic late 2010s soundtrack. I remember it vividly. Now, the book, not so much. Let me tell you, Norah, little Norah, is so funny because she is self-aware, but she's also doing a not like other girls thing so perfectly in a way where you can't even be fully mad at it because it's almost exemplifying that. Kind of indie girl, hipster girl, 18-year-old from 2009 vibe perfectly. Also, they keep calling Nick's character a stud, which is so funny because, he's played by Michael Cera in the movie, who is not what I would like to call a stud. Halfway through it. It's only 10 p.m. We love that. It's so funny. This book is actually written in 2006 or published in 2006. I didn't know the date. The movie came out in 2009. But despite the fact that this book is pretty old, it feels very culturally relevant. Yes, parts of it are dated. Also, I really like the fact they make Trish, whatever her name is, this character from the movie, a three-dimensional person in the book. She is one-dimensional in the movie, and I like the fact you see her as a human being. I don't know why I'm sitting here comparing this. So far, this book, though, is living up to my high school expectations. This is orange juice. I want to start a physical book, Abundance of Catherines. I read this book in 2011. I have never touched it since. But I do owe so much to this book. I owe the fact I'm on BookTube to this book because I remember reading it, falling in love with it, going to the back, Brotherhood 2.0 ad, going to the YouTube channel, watching all of the Vlogbrothers videos that were up, which were, hundreds of them, becoming a nerd fighter, and then from there learning about BookTube. So this book, is the genesis to this channel. So while I don't think I'm going to like it as much as I did as a 16, 15-year-old, I am excited to read it. I didn't explain what this book is about. I sort of assumed you would know. About a teen prodigy, a girl dumps him, her name is Catherine, he's dated 19 girls named Catherine, his best friend's like, do you want to go on a road trip to get over your heartbreak? Done. I was first couple pages, wow, this is better than I expected. Oh, Mr. Green. Thing is about this book so far, and we're only, a few pages in, a few chapters in, this lovely stock image photo cover. I mean, the concept of a boy who's dated 19 girls named Catherine is already completely wild and vaguely, weirdly sexist. But we also have a best friend character who is of Lebanese descent, a Muslim, and who is also overall completely treated as a caricature. His religion, his faith, his family's faith, his background, it's just treated in a really weird way. On top of that, fat phobia. Oh, we hate that. I'm going to keep reading because I want to see what's going to happen. And also, this is what this video is. Confronting the horrors of my past and my past reading life. So creepy. At one point, the main character, who's kind of an asshole, that doesn't bother me. I don't mind asshole main characters, especially teenage boys, because, there's truth in that. But he trips and falls, he hurts himself, and this girl, who he describes as unattractive, striking looking, but basically ugly, and until she smiles, by the way, and he hits his head, and his friend won't take off his shirt, because fat phobia is this book, and so instead, she takes off her shirt, and she's 17, to help him. And then he has a whole tangent about all the girls named Catherine whose bras he's seen. But I just want to mention that in this year of our Lord 2021, I read The Anthropocene Reviewed, which is one of my favorite books of the year. Honestly, my top 5 of the year. Made me cry, made me feel seen. And then I read this book. The book that made me fall in love with the way John Green writes as a teenager. And I think, Okay, I got 100 pages in to Bunce of Catherine's, and I am more than halfway through Nick and Norah, so I'm gonna go to bed. It isn't super late, it's only like 12:30, but I'm exhausted. She slept so bad. I'm gonna make a cup of coffee. I finished this book. At what cost? It is currently 11:21. This book was pretty wildly offensive. Okay, the rundown. Talked about this book is pretty fat phobic. I have a character, although I can't speak to this, but it just seems like a pretty simplistic stereotyping of a Muslim teen. We also have characters using the R word throughout this book, and at one point the F slur. Rampant sexism. Just rampant sexism. This book is really bad. Now, as I mentioned last night, their writing isn't bad. It is entertaining, it's fast-paced, there's something about it that I think speaks to obnoxious teen boys who feel like they're smart but are violently insecure. I think it speaks to that narrative very well, but it was really awful. It's so funny. I remember reading this book as a 15-year-old, having not really read a ton in my life and not read a ton of YA, and just finding this book to be really special and good, and finding the romance to be good, which the romance isn't even good. I was just overall surprised that I loved this book so much as a 15-year-old. Obviously, I didn't know anything because, wow. Do I have good feelings about the fact this book led me to BookTube? Yes. Did this book, live up to the expectations that I thought it was probably not going to live up to my high school experience? Yes. It is currently like 12:30. I just finished Nick and Norah's. I enjoyed it. It is really different from the movie. Like, it's similar in a lot of ways, but the plot is super different, which, I don't know, I sort of like the movie plot more. It's more exciting. The stakes are higher. It was kind of nice to revisit this because it had been so long and I truly did not remember anything about it other than the Michael Cera Kat Dennings movie. I'm going to listen to Shatter Me. Relationship with Shatter Me is really interesting. I read Shatter Me in high school. I really wasn't into dystopian literature, but I remember trying them out, It was the time period, 2012, 2011. And I thought this book was really fun and really interesting and a good time. And now there's like 15,000 books. Truly, this series will never end. You know how in the Shatter Me book they'd have like a line cross through crap? Like her thoughts, she'd be like, a line, and that was a big thing. The audiobook, it just has this noise. We've just met Warner, our good man Warner, and we also just heard the narrator, who's doing her dang best, say in this voice, "Why don't you just kill me then?" I feel like I don't need to explain what this book is about, right? Everybody knows what Shatter Me is about. Dystopian girl, if you touch her, she hurts you, a la like Rogue in X-Men. Is it Rogue? Is her name Rogue? Anna Paquin. Anna Paquin, X-Men. Rogue. So you know how last night I talked a bunch of shit about Vampire Academy and how I couldn't find an audiobook and I was afraid I was going to have to buy an ebook. Well, I found it in my library, but I'm not going to read it. I realized that I remember almost every detail of that book. I'm going to put that one aside. Maybe we'll watch the movie later. That could be fun. And instead, for the physical book I'm going to read, Lola and the Boy Next Door. Let's dissect this cover for a minute. So they redid the covers, they look like this, but this is the cover that I bought, or my dad bought for me in like 2011. Lovely little stock photo image of San Francisco in the background, and then these two quirky kids on the front. You know, quirky. We've actually read this book physically for the first time at my high school library, because I worked in my high school library and it was the greatest time in my life, to be completely honest. I remember squealing a lot when reading this book, feeling all the romantic feelings, thinking I want a boyfriend like Lola has, and just being enamored. I also read this book before I read Anne and the French Kiss. So I read this, and then I read this, and then I think I read this, and then many years later when I was in college, Island Happily Ever After came out. So I forgot that at the beginning of this book she's dating a 22-year-old and she's 17. Everyone knows it's weird, except for Lola, obviously. Like, her parents know it's weird. Like, I think everyone realizes it's creepy. It's funny, because I was trying to think if, when I read this book as a teenager, if I would have recognized that. And I don't think I would have completely. If you hear hollering, it's because there's a football game today and people are, you know, having a time. Lola not being interested in her neighbor, her longtime neighbor, Cricket, who is, you know, the love interest of the book, of course, because his name is Cricket, until he starts dressing well. That feels accurate to the teenage girl experience. I'm enjoying Lola so much. I reread Anne the French Kiss a couple years ago. I talked about that already, and I really didn't like it. Like, I loved the way that Stephanie Perkins wrote about Paris. I thought it was really fun, but I did not enjoy the romance. Like, they cheat in that book. It's really weird. We get to see those characters in Lola because all of these books are interconnected and they're like cute or whatever, but I was still like, because this book was like really my introduction to YA contemporary romance as a teenager. Lola specifically, it holds such a special place in my heart, and I was kind of worried that it was going to be really contrite, but so far it's cute. It's sort of a second chance romance, you know. This girl had a crush on her neighbor, something happened, he moves away, and now he's back.
Editing Emma here. I have a quick note of something that I forgot to mention when I was filming this video, which is the conversation that I kept having with myself with almost all of these books, even the ones I was really enjoying, like Lola and the Boy Next Door, how they all had sort of, especially the contemporary ones, a dated edge to them, and how it's so interesting that in 2021 it seems like YA authors are specifically very careful to not perpetuate harmful ideas that are already perpetuated by society, and how for my age group of like young millennials didn't really have that carefulness all the time. Just something to note that I kept thinking about.
So I'm almost done with Lola's. This is all I have left. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's really sweet and is living up in terms of the romance specifically, but the whole book, to my 16-year-old sort of feelings. Maybe less intense, but it is very sweet. And I'm gonna cry because this is just like adorable. The last person to read this book was my best friend Madeline from high school, and we're still best friends, and she probably read this book when we were in high school, maybe like only a month or two after I finished it at the most, and I never like picked it up again. And I opened this book up, and on page 288 she had put flowers, like pressed flowers, in the book, which is a very her thing to do. And it's just so sweet, and I just texted her because it just made me so happy and adorable, and it's kind of perfect for this video. I finished Lola and the Boy Next Door. This is the superior book in this series. And the French Kiss doesn't hold up. It's just, there's cheating, there's parts of it that I just don't think are very good. But it is dreamy, you know, set in Paris. The third book, I remember being fairly disappointing, didn't love the couple. This book, adorable. Second chance romance, friends to dating, is the cutest thing, and this book is very sweet. I also ran across a line that I was obsessed with as a teenager that I think at one point had written on a quote and put on my wall in my room. I know you aren't perfect, but it's a person's imperfections that make them perfect for someone else. And that blew my mind as a teenager. So it's 7:30. What am I going to read? I'm probably going to read The Name of the Star next, which I think will be really fun. Once again, a very old cover. They redid the covers, I don't know, a few years ago. But I remember loving this book. It's a Jack the Ripper murder book. I never explained what this book is about, but basically this is a dark academia book about an American girl who goes to London to a boarding school, and while she's there, a series of Jack the Ripper style murders starts happening. She realizes she can see ghosts, and she joins a police force, a ghost police force. So there you go. Love Maureen Johnson. I think this one will be very entertaining, from like 2011, I think. And I'll have to finish Shatter Me, but we have all of tomorrow, so we'll see. Hi, welcome to Emma Watched Vampire Academy, but the audio was so bad, so we're going to do a voiceover instead. Time to watch a movie with Zoe Deutsch, Sarah Hyland, and a bunch of randos we've never heard of again. And there it was. Goodbye Facebook, goodbye iPhone 5. Teen YA movies from this period of time are so easy to sum up. Vampire Academy is a movie about a vampire academy. And that's about it. Also, yes, it will be randomly very, very violent. Every YA movie from this period of time also has to have a randomly very good actor in it, like Claire Foy. And a British guy who looks exactly like this. She's 15, he's 30. You know, what can go wrong? He does stop it from happening because he realizes it's wrong, but what is with the age gap thing in these frickin' movies and books from this period of time? It's so weird. And of course, they tried to set up a sequel that never happened. I finished Vampire Academy. I am really glad that I ended up watching this movie instead of rereading the book, because what a movie. Warner's a really bad guy, and the switcheroo that occurs with Adam being the bad guy later in the book series, the chokehold on YA authors from like 2005 to 2015, where they'd have like a nice love interest and then they'd be like, bleh, he's actually evil. The evil guy you thought was evil, he's the good guy. They're all bad. Spoiler alert, they're all bad. No, Adam, why would you want to help me? Run away. I love you. You don't really know her. Now she's saying I love you forever? They like vaguely knew each other in elementary school.
I can't believe it's really you. I mean, well, I thought it was because I thought I heard something. And at first I figured it was nothing. Then I should probably check just to be sure. Because what was you? In classes. Wait, what are you doing here?
I hate this book, sort of. It's the morning, finish Shatter Me. The heart of this book are like the characters. That's like what this book's appeal is for a lot of people. This whole series appeal has to do with the first 3 books when they came out. And I remember liking kind of the drama of the characters. However, I've said this like a bajillion times in this video, I don't understand how Warner is redeemed. Like, I don't remember how they could make this like scary, like creepy assaulter into like the love interest and the good guy. Now, you know, this was such a big thing in like YA novels, especially back in the day, like 10 years ago. Think about like Shadow and Bone, a villain who is hot, a villain who the main character kind of wants to get with. But the way the Darkling is created, you can tell that Alina is interested in him despite herself. In this book, Julia is so disgusted by Warner. Like, there's no attraction, really. Like, he says there's attraction, but there isn't. I don't know. Also, the way her and Adam move is so fast. It's, like, wild. So I kind of do understand how that breaks down. Am I analyzing this book too much? Yes, I think I may be. I didn't think it was going to hold up for me, and I'm okay with that. I have the rest of today to finish this challenge until 8 p.m. It's currently 11:10. I'm so tired. So the narrator is British, and she's doing a pretty good American accent. But instead of saying New Orleans, she says New Orleans. Not like New Orleans. New Orleans. I've never heard someone pronounce New Orleans like New Orleans, like pronouncing every syllable. I don't know, maybe that's a thing, or maybe that's just the fact she's British. Lines of the audiobook narrator wilding out. So the main character, like I said, is from Louisiana, and when the narrator does her accent, she only does it when the main character is speaking. So when the main character is thinking, because this book is first person, it's just a general American accent. But when she's speaking, it's like a Southern accent, and it's like a debutante Southern accent. And it's such a choice. Such a choice. Wow! It's pretty late in the day. We have till 8. I don't think I'm going to end up finishing anything else but The Name of the Star, which I'm okay with. 5 books in 2 days, I think is still pretty good. Hello. It is currently 7. I finished The Name of the Star by Miss Maureen Johnson. Did I love this book? Not as much as I did when I read it as a teenager. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun and creepy, atmospheric. I think it's a great dark academia book. I thought about like finishing this series. I never finished it, and I was like, well, I've reread this one. I should reread the second one, then read the third one. Then I found out this series never finished. Like, there are 3 books, and there's supposed to be a 4th book, and then it never got a 4th book. And I don't want to invest time into a series that Miss Sweet Maureen Johnson gave up on. I'm so thankful that we have Truly Devious, because I prefer that series, and it's similar in a lot of ways. It was much creepier than I remembered. Like I said, very atmospheric, very fun, very fallish, very Halloween. So I definitely fit into that. But it wasn't as exciting as I remembered, and I remember the main character being much pluckier than she was. I thought she was kind of boring and kind of a husk, and I'm not really used to that with Maureen Johnson. Normally, I feel like her main characters have a lot of character, and this just didn't have that. But that's okay. Overall, had a good time with all of the accents, at least. Let's wrap this baby up. 5 books, 48 hours, rereading my favorites from high school. Let's talk about it quickly. I read Abundance of Catherine's first physically, hated it. I read Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist via audiobook. I think it lived up and some. Then I read Lil and the Boy Next Door. It's definitely better than I expected. Probably my favorite thing I read for this video, or reread for this video. Next, Shatter Me. This was fine. I hate this book. And then finally, The Name of the Star, which I just talked about. Pretty good. Again, I think it was better than fine. I mostly enjoyed it. It just didn't have the same spice and excitement that I wanted it to have. That was my little rereading experiment. I missed out on some books that I definitely wanted to get to, but maybe I'll do this again in a different video. Let me know your thoughts and have a lovely day. I'm gonna go sleep forever. I'm gonna sleep for a really long time. Just sleep and sleep and sleep.